Mole Trap.
What's that, Noah?
You know what day it is?
It is Friday.
Oh, really? I didn't know it was Friday.
A name of a day which has nothing to do with any musical compositions that I know of or
I don't
can
think so.
of.
Not that I know
No, it is
of.
Friday, but it does have to do with the GSL Code A.
Yeah, that's the important reason why today is the day that it is. It's the second day of the round of 16.
Second and last day of the round of 16. Things move quickly. If you blink the round of 16, you miss some epic matches. If you missed Wednesday, you missed out, man.
Yeah,
you missed
seriously.
out. You better pay attention today. There's going to be some awesome matches today. We got MVP.
Yep.
Undoubtedly the best Terran in the world.
That's right.
I would say personally the best player in the world.
Maybe.
But there's some debate. I'm willing to entertain some debate on that.
That's right.
It's planned today. We got a lot of new Code A players coming up from the round of 32. Some of them qualified this season. Some of them from last season. A lot of Gosus today.
Yeah, seriously. Our first match of the day. Well, you'll see them all soon, but let's talk about a little bit. MVP Violet versus Slayers Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, let's take a look at Wednesday's match results before we go into anything that I just spoke about. Wednesday's match results, we saw MMA take down Hyperdub in short order. There was a nuke rush in that game, that first game. That was crazy. Then we saw I'm Nuts get defeated by Startail Bomber. Bomber, of course, looking very, very strong this season. Then we had Creator Prime .We taken down by Slayers Ryung. So another victory for yet another Slayers player today, but it was not to last because Slayers Boxer himself...
Don't even say it!
He was taken down.
No!
I'm sorry, I have to say it. It's on the screen. He was taken down by TSL Alive. Alive, to his credit, did play very well.
You're going to have to cast the rest yourself.
Sorry.
I'm going to have to go cry in a corner for a while.
Don't worry about that.
Wait. Oh, actually,
we've got matches today.
I'm excited now.
That's
what do we
right.
got today?
We've got MVP Violet versus Slayers Yu-Gi-Oh! Then Slayers Min versus I'm MVP. Bonbon. Oh, no. Hozo Bonbon. Sorry about that. Versus MVP Keen. Zenex Coca versus MVP Noblesse. It is MVP day.
Yeah,
Wednesday was Slayers Day. Today is MVP Day.
Yeah,
went into
the makeup room today, and there's 3 different players with MVP jackets sitting in there already.
Yeah, this season it's like all Slayers and MVP, it seems like, and then just like a couple from every other team. Those two teams are really starting to make a name for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you could even say starting with Slayers. I mean, they won the Team League.
That's true.
They've got some very strong players showing it in, a couple players in Code S.
Yeah, well, not anymore.
I was trying not to spoil yesterday.
So what?
That's
I mean, I'm like very casual.
I guess if you're watching
spoilers.
a live broadcast. Anyway, let's go ahead and get to the first game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Versus Violet.
All right, so here we have the former Warcraft 3 player spawning as our Red Zerg down at the bottom of Xel'Naga Fortress. He is known as
MVP Violet.
Kind of had to slow the intro down a little bit there to get it out. With a couple extra periods in there. There he is. Yeah. First time in GSL this season. And he took out another former Warcraft 3 pro in the Code A qualifiers. He took down FXO's Moonblade, who was in Code A last season.
Yep. And the only ZVZ experience we know of him is he actually beat Drughead, if you recall.
Drughead. Oh, but here's our other Zerg. He is a member of Slayers, named after a card game or a cartoon or something. He is.
Slayers Yu-Gi-Oh!
Slayers Yu-Gi-Oh! So we'll have to see what these guys have in store for us today. There is Yu-Gi-Oh! Himself. Blue eyes, white dragon, isn't it something like that? I don't know.
What?
My little brothers and sisters used to watch Yu-Gi-Oh! So I saw like a little bit of it, but I don't really know much about it.
Okay. I have no knowledge of Yu-Gi-Oh! I apologize.
All right.
Now we're starting to see, by the way, even though this game is not too far underway, we do see a very, very... Well, actually, yeah, no, he is going to go gas pool. That's kind of interesting. Wow, Violet's going for a gas pool on 14, and we actually saw an extractor trick to get his pool out a little bit earlier for Yu-Gi-Oh! So he has his pool out very early, but he doesn't have gas coming in.
Yeah, just starting to get that now, so he's going to want to get that very, very fast Zergling speed. ZVZ is one of those matchups, too, where it's really kind of tough to tell what people are going to do that early in the game, although Yu-Gi-Oh! Already has a big group of Zerglings heading over to the base of MVP Violet. We'll have to see if he can cause any damage with that. By the time they get there, I believe that Violet should have at least a few Zerglings out. Depends on how many he ended up making. Let's see.
Yeah, it looks like he just made the 6 or 8.
Okay, so it should be okay.
Yeah, 8 Zerglings.
Yeah.
They are headed over there. They might do a little damage because the Zerglings are in production, but they are not going to be out by the time these Zerglings get up into the base. He's going to have to micro his drones around a little bit, and there he goes, having to pull his drones away. Needs to be careful not to lose too many of these drones.
There.
And he is actually losing drones here, killing off some Zerglings, and finally his Lings pop out, and so that is the end of that.
Very well handled. It's really, really tough to make that early Zergling aggression work against a Zerg that didn't go hatch first. And so many Zergs in Korea aren't doing the drone scout on 9 like you see a lot of people do. So as we saw, a good example of that is Demaga versus Nesty back in the World Championship. He knew that Nesty didn't drone scout. He just went for hatch first every game, so Demaga basically just did a 9 pool and all in him. Baneling Nest going up right now for MVP. And trying to respond to a little bit of aggression of his own, but really it's just meant to kind of push back the Zerglings. 2 queens out already for Yu-Gi-Oh!
Now, because that was kind of an interesting exchange, we're actually at a situation where Violet is actually pretty far behind. He's only at 12 drones at the moment. He does have speed first, but I don't think that's going to be too much of a difference at this point.
Yeah. Since
he does have those 2 queens. Anyway, but Yu-Gi-Oh! He lost a few Lings, but he did kill off 2 drones in that, so that's part of what put Yu-Gi-Oh! So far behind, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a Baneling Nest about to pop.
Well, that's actually Violet.
I'm sorry, Violet.
So they're both Zerg. It's hard to tell sometimes. The worst, you know what the worst is when you're casting a game and one of the players is orange and the other is yellow?
Yeah.
That is the worst in ZVZ. Any of you out there who may be casters knows what I'm talking about. I really like what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is doing, blocking the ramp with those 2 queens. That's going to really help against the Banelings that Violet can send in.
The Spinecrawler can hit him from behind.
Yeah.
And those Banelings really would love to just explode in that little group of Lings, but the queens on the ramp are going to keep that from happening. Now, if he can kill off the queens with the Zerglings somehow, he'd be able to get Banelings up there. But I think with the Spinecrawler behind, that's not going to happen. He's going to go for it, though, trying to force the queen out of position.
Wow.
Baneling lands on several Zerglings, though. It looks like the queen is going to go out as well. And actually, Violet making a really big impact here if he can run by that Spinecrawler. Stays within range for a moment too long and is actually going to get back here and possibly kill some drones.
Yeah, Violet's going to kill a lot of drones right now. Yu-Gi-Oh's in a pretty tough situation. He'll be able to clean up these Zerglings, but how many did he lose? Not as many as I thought he was going to. He did lose both his queens, though.
3 drones only, but yeah,
losing those queens
lost
huge.
All of his queens, all of his Zerglings, and both of his queens and all of his Zerglings. So,
yep. I really like that wall-off that he had going, but one of the queens just got a little bit out of position. Sure shows you how many Baneling hits the queens can soak, too.
Yeah, and that's why we saw him hitting with the Zerglings first to try and force that out of position.
Yeah. 2 Banelings coming into the base of Yu-Gi-Oh! He's going to
go for
off. Wow, nice. He did get a good group of Zerglings there. And is he going to be able to get the other ones? Yes, he does. Yu-Gi-Oh! Once again safe for now. Roach Warren out for Yu-Gi-Oh! He does have a couple Roaches out on the field right now. Some players do decide to skip Banelings and go straight for Roaches, but both of our players today deciding to get a little Roach, a couple Banelings rather, for safety.
Yeah, he did get, once he gets a few Roaches on the ramp, then Banelings won't really be worth anything anymore, but he's actually going to attack with the Roaches.
Okay.
This is interesting. He's going with his own Banelings to make an attack. There's a Spinecrawler there and a Queen. I don't think that's going to do anything. Both Banelings go down before getting in there. So, yeah, and in the meantime, Violet, he'd been behind most of the time, but killing those drones and getting a few more of his own
kind of even things out again.
Even things out. And by the way, for those of you, I keep talking about drones over and over and over again, and people might be like, well, why is he so fixated on drones? In Zerg versus Zerg, you're at such a low drone count most of the time, especially in games like this, that... Hold off that. These Lings, yeah, they're going to get forced back. That's why I was talking about the Roaches on the ramp. When you have so few drones, I mean, think about it. If you only have 10 drones and you lose one, that's 10% of your economy.
Yeah.
So when you have a low drone count, drones are very important. That's why I kind of keep going back to that. When someone has a 5-drone lead, like Yu-Gi-Oh! Did for a while, that's actually really, really big.
Expo going down for Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. Violet's going to be able to... Oh, he didn't save it, and he did not cancel that either.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh, no.
That's a big loss of minerals. There was no drone coming out of that hatchery, so that was not a cancel, unfortunately. Yu-Gi-Oh! Putting down another one. And a lot of people will talk about ZVZ and talk about how it's such a micro-intensive matchup, and it is, but like you were saying with the drones, it's really more of a macro matchup. It's really more of an economy-based matchup. Because if you can kill off some queens, if you can kill off a couple drones here and there, that's what's going to win it.
It's a very delicate matchup. You know, if you... It's all about sneaking in drones where you can, and just doing the little with what you can, and barely making enough of this, barely making enough of that kind of thing.
Yep.
And he might go in and cancel this hatchery again, or force a cancel for the first time, rather.
Looks like he might be okay. That Roach and a couple Zerglings should be able to handle that. Roaches actually do take a long time to die. Here comes a push from Yu-Gi-Oh! Though. A lot of Roaches out right now for Violet. Yu-Gi-Oh's going to need to pull back, deciding to save those Banelings. That's a good decision. They would do nothing but soften up those Roaches a little bit.
Nice target firing by Violet there, making sure he picks off that Roach that was injured.
Yep, so we may see one of those ZVZs that rarely does get into a little bit later of a stage of a game.
Yep, we do have both players getting their expansions up at about the same time.
Yep,
and
second gas for Violet right now.
Yeah, and because Yu-Gi-Oh! I like how he put the creep between his bases. Spared a little bit there despite losing 2 early queens, so he could make sure to get the creep between his bases, get that spine crawler down early. And it's just going to be a little bit longer for Violet. And at this point, this is where the game turns primarily into a macro Roach war, where who can get the most Roaches the fastest and have the most, and also upgrades. We're probably going to see Evo Chambers go down before too long if the game turns into more of a macro game. But, you know, at that point when your opponent has several Roaches, like each do, Banelings are kind of worthless. Well, not worthless, but they're not as cost effective.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Doing some scouting with that Overlord. The Queen's going to take him out before he sees a whole lot. He's not going to really see anything he doesn't know about already. I mean, all that's there is the Roach Warren. Second gas can kind of tip him in that there will be a little bit more teching from Violet. And, you know, one thing you hear about a lot in StarCraft 2 is the concave. You know, you want to get the good concave against your opponent. And I really think nowhere, in no matchup, is that more important than ZVZ. When it does become Roach Army versus Roach Army, you'll see it time and time again that whichever player has that better concave comes out significantly ahead.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I'm really surprised we don't see Evo Chambers from either player, because oftentimes the concave is just barely more important than, there we go, some Evo Chambers from Yu-Gi-Oh!
There they are.
Double Evo Chambers, actually, before, man, if he gets 1-1, oh, this could actually be huge. If he gets 1-1 upgrades on his Roaches when Violet has 0-0, then he will just own, I mean, even if he has a worse concave, he's going to own Violet's Roaches pretty hardcore. So there's actually, and I was going to say there's a small window for him to attack, and Violet is moving out, as you can see on the minimap.
Well, Yu-Gi-Oh! Could just stay on Hatchery Tech, get upgrades, and just go mass Roach and a couple Banelings here and there. Whereas Violet, you know, we'll have to see what he does, but a lot of players will tech up to Hydras as well. One Evolution Chamber going up for Violet. No sign of a lair yet from either player, but Violet is getting pretty close to the base of Yu-Gi-Oh! Here comes Violet.
There he goes.
Does he have enough
this
Roaches,
is his
though?
one chance.
He has a lot of Roaches. Baneling softening them up pretty well, but I don't think it's going to be enough.
Yeah, Violet has a lot more Roaches at this point. He takes out the Spine Crawler, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Is close to his base, can reinforce a lot easier. Violet has his
nice
Roaches reinforcing, and Zerglings coming in. But, oh, it looks like, yeah, those extra Roaches coming down from Yu-Gi-Oh! Are going to force Violet back, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Takes a commanding lead because it's only Speedlings rallied to this battle. They're going to be forced to turn around because they're not going to be of any use against these Roaches. And, oh, if he can catch up to those Roaches, actually, there's... Well, not that important. Yeah, all those Roaches that you see that are red are in the red, so you can catch those and kill them off.
Now, +1's actually getting pretty close to done for Yu-Gi-Oh! As well. I'm surprised he's moving out this far. I think this was a bad decision, getting surrounded by the Zerglings. And this is terrible right now for Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now it is 0-0 to 0-0 for the upgrades. More reinforcements coming in. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Somehow coming ahead, although about half those Roaches are pretty low health right now.
Yeah, I just noticed this. I think our observer showed it a moment ago. I was kind of trying to figure out what was going on. I think it canceled or never made his second upgrade. So it is just going to be +1 attack weapon. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Still putting on the pressure, though.